Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to MyPillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. MyPillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in on this Friday as we wrap up another week. A federal judge yesterday ordered the Trump administration to make full supplemental nutritional assistance program, SNAP payments, for November despite the government shutdown. Now, somebody help me out here. How exactly does this work? If the money isn't there, how can a judge make the government spend money it doesn't have? We'll jump into this in just a minute. A House GOP lawmaker is proposing to block all federal funds from New York City for as long as Zohran Mamdani is their mayor. We have the details on that, too. And the Wicked Witch of the West is leaving. She's not dead, but she's leaving. After nearly 40 years in Congress, Nancy Pelosi says she's ready to step back, spend more time with her family, and let a new generation take the reins. Pelosi announced her retirement yesterday, effective when her term ends in January 2027. And South Carolina Lieutenant Governor Pamella Evette joins us for her response to the theatrics of her gubernatorial opponent, South Carolina Representative Nancy Mace.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, you know, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
All right, I always turn to you when I don't understand something, and today is no different. Tell me how this works. How can a federal judge order the Trump administration to make full SNAP payments for November when the government shut down and there's no funding there? U.S. District Judge John McConnell rejected the administration's plan to provide partial payments without tapping additional funds, saying it failed to comply with his previous order. McConnell, an appointee of the former Obama administration, said this is a problem that could have been and should have been avoided. Well, you're right. You're right there, Judge. Your Democrat buddies over there in Congress could open the government back up. Now, the Trump administration had intended to fully cut off SNAP payments for roughly the 42 million Americans starting this month because of the record-breaking government shutdown. And they felt like that legally they could not tap funds in reserve funds to pay these benefits. This led to two lawsuits that assert the benefits must keep flowing. Last week, Judge McConnell ruled the administration at minimum was required to deplete a roughly $5 billion SNAP contingency fund, but it was not enough to fully fund November benefits, which are expected to cost about $9 billion. The judge had told the administration it needed to tap other funds to cover the gap or expeditiously get partial payments out. The Trump administration announced it would not tap other funds, but it warned the recalculations for partial payments could cause weeks-long delays in some states. McConnell said yesterday, if that continued to be the case, then the administration was required under this court's order to immediately make the full payment for November SNAP benefits, considering the finding of irreparable harm that would occur. The judge's new order requires the administration to make the full November payments to states by today so they can provide them to households. Now, lawyers for the Justice Department rejected the notion that the administration ran afoul of the judge's directive. They contend that tapping the additional funds put child nutrition programs at risk. Justice Department Attorney Tyler Becker said at the hearing the government reasonably interpreted the order. But the judge rejected that argument, finding that the government's plan to be arbitrary and capricious. McConnell said, contrary to the defendant's argument, 28 million children are not at risk of going hungry should this transfer occur. The ruling, of course, comes in a lawsuit that was brought by a coalition of cities and private organizations, one of two challenges to the administration's refusal. The second was filed by 25 Democrat-led states, and it's being weighed by a federal judge in Boston. Again, I ask you, how can a federal judge make the government spend money it doesn't have? And if you take it from one program, then that program is going to hurt. Look, if a federal judge, if all that needs to happen to make government payments, all they have to do is wave their magic wand, then just wave their magic wand and reopen the government. We all know it doesn't work like that, though. The Senate is set to vote again sometime later today on a pathway forward after the House passed their continuing resolution back in September. There's no expectation that the Senate's vote today will be any different than what it has been for the past 14 times or so. All right, one more thing out of Washington, because it's got Washington buzzing. New Yorkers are fuming. Georgia Congressman Buddy Carter just dropped what he's calling the Mamdani Act. It's actually named after New York City's brand new socialist mayor, Zohran Mamdani. Now, here's what it does, or at least what it's going to try to do. The bill would cut off all federal funding to New York City for as long as Mamdani's sitting in the mayor's chair. Every single dime gone. No federal funds, no grants, no special projects. Congressman Carter says if New Yorkers want to experiment with socialism, fine, but don't expect the rest of the country to bail them out when it fails. I agree. I think you probably do too. In his words, and this is a quote, if New Yorkers want communism, we should let them have their wish and not artificially prop them up with our successful capitalistic system. He even threw in a little Southern hospitality, saying any common sense New Yorker is welcome to move down to the great free state of Georgia. Congressman, the only thing I have to say about that is let's make sure they get through South Carolina and they end up in Georgia. Stop inviting people from New York to come south. You're welcome to have them in Georgia. They just need to know they can't stop in the Carolinas. Now, let's be honest about this. This bill has about as much chance of passing as Bernie Sanders has of joining the NRA, and that ain't going to happen. But it's not really about becoming law. It's really about sending a message, a shot across the bow, if you will, that the GOP isn't going to sit quietly while one of America's biggest cities becomes a socialist playground. And that's exactly how Republicans are framing this. Party leaders are already trying to tie Democrats nationwide to Mamdani's far-left agenda, higher taxes, rent control, government-run programs, anti-police rhetoric, the whole playbook. They're calling him the new face of the Democrat Party, the Democrat socialist in chief. And frankly, that's not too far-fetched. Mamdani's victory speech, did you listen to any of it? It could have been written by Karl Marx. He talked about dismantling capitalism, expanding public housing, putting the people in charge of industry. You know, all the buzzwords that sound nice on TikTok but crash economies in the real world. Make cities go belly up like New York. Now, critics of Carter's plan say it's unfair. They point out that New York sends more tax dollars to Washington than it gets back. That's probably true. But that's not really the point here. The point is, why should the rest of the country fund policies that undermine the very system that made America work? Think about it. New York City's already drowning in debt. Businesses are fleeing. And now they elect a mayor who wants to double down on government control. The last thing taxpayers in Georgia or anywhere else should have to do is subsidize this mess that he's proposing. So even if this Mamdani Act never makes it past committee, and it won't, it's making headlines. It's got people thinking. It's got people talking. And that's exactly what the GOP wants. They're using this moment to draw a clear line. Socialism versus capitalism, dependency versus freedom, Mamdani's vision versus America's founding principles, the principles that you and I hold dear. And if the next few years in New York turn into the financial disaster that a lot of people, including Wall Street CEOs, if it happens as being predicted, Republicans are going to have a very powerful campaign ad handed to them on a silver platter. Look, if Mamdani gets in there and gets started working quickly enough and is able to do some of the things he wants to do, it will probably even help in the midterm, because it won't take long for some of these businesses and some of the programs that he's wanting to put in place to take effect and to start hurting New Yorkers. They're going to find out real quickly. Now, the only hope New York has is that maybe, just maybe, the city council, or whatever they call them there, has a little common sense, and they will put up some roadblocks along the way. We'll see, though. It's going to be interesting to watch, and we'll walk with you every step of the way. Let's be honest, those summer vacations and backyard barbecues added some extra pounds, right? But instead of feeling guilty or falling further behind, it's time to reset, drop the weight, and get back in control. The solution isn't a shot. Real lasting weight loss starts with your mind, not your mouth. At PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team help you uncover the real reasons behind your weight gain so that you can reprogram the way you think about food forever. PhD clients lose up to a third of their body weight without ever taking a drug. I know, because I lost 33 pounds with PhD Weight Loss. Through real food, behavioral coaching, and proven science, your body can become a natural fat-burning machine. Why risk spending thousands on shots that strip away muscle, come with dangerous side effects, and leave most people regaining 60% of the weight within a year? With PhD, you'll activate your body's natural appetite control, burn fat safely, and stay in control. Even if you're already on Ozempic, PhD can help you transition off while still losing weight. Take the first step today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. Well, folks, one of the longest running acts in American politics has finally taken its final bow. Nancy Pelosi, the San Francisco liberal icon, the face of the Democrat power for decades now, and yes, the first female Speaker of the House, is calling it quits. After nearly 40 years in Congress, Ms. Pelosi says she's ready to step back, spend more time with her family, and let a new generation take the reins. And while I know most of my listeners won't be shedding tears over the news, her retirement does mark the end of an era in Washington politics. Now, look, I'll give credit where credit's due. Nancy Pelosi is tough as nails. She didn't get where she got by accident. In a town full of egos and empty suits, she was a political brawler who could twist arms and count votes better than anybody in her party. Even Republicans will admit, if Pelosi wanted something passed, it got passed. She had total control over her caucus, and she knew just how to use it as well. That said, that kind of politics, the kind that she practiced, well, let's just say it's the reason Washington is as divided as it is today. Pelosi didn't lead with grace. She led with a gavel and a glare. She turned the speaker's chair into a weapon against her political opponents, especially against one man she seemed to despise more than anyone, President Donald J. Trump. You remember that moment, the State of the Union address in 2020? President Trump had just wrapped up his speech. Pelosi, standing right behind him in front of the cameras, in front of the nation, in front of the world, tore his speech in half, page by page, and did it with a smile. That wasn't leadership. That was childishness. It was theater, and it was meant to send a message. I hate this man, and I hate the people who support him. And millions of Americans watching that night, good, hardworking, patriotic Americans, they saw it for what it was. Complete disrespect, not just for Donald Trump, but for the office he held, the presidency of the United States. But that's Nancy Pelosi. That's Nancy in a nutshell. For decades, she's been the symbol of Washington elite. The rules for thee, not for me. She was right there in that crowd. Remember during COVID, when Americans were told to stay home, close their businesses, wear masks? Remember that? Take a shot, and there's Pelosi getting her hair done in a closed salon, maskless, while everyone else was suffering under the mandates her party promoted. Under her leadership, under Nancy Pelosi's leadership, we saw the rise of trillion-dollar spending bills, endless government overreach, and a deepening divide between the political class and the everyday Americans. She pushed the so-called Affordable Care Act, which made health care anything but affordable. She drove through massive spending packages under the Biden administration that fueled the inflation that we're seeing today, sent our national debt through the roof. And let's not forget her role in the 2 impeachments of Donald Trump as well. Political stunts that did nothing to unite the country and everything to divide it. While Pelosi and her allies obsessed over trying to destroy Trump, everyday Americans, you and me, we were dealing with crime in our cities, chaos at the border, and skyrocketing prices at the grocery store that still have not come down and probably never will. But here's the irony. In her quest to cement her legacy, Pelosi may have set her own party up for trouble. The Democrat Party she leaves behind is not the same party she took over. Today's Democrats aren't content with the old school liberalism. They've veered even further left. The Squad, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, they see Pelosi as too moderate. Think about that. Nancy Pelosi being a moderate? So what comes next for the Democrats? Probably more infighting, more progressive radicalism, more division, because the one thing Nancy Pelosi did well was keep that liberal coalition together, no matter how far apart they were on ideology. And once she's gone, there's no one left who can command that kind of loyalty. Now, conservatives shouldn't take her departure lightly. Say what you will about her politics, Pelosi was effective. She knew how to use power, and Republicans in Congress could learn something from how she handled that, how she ruled with an iron fist. Not her ideology, not her methods, but her discipline. When Pelosi wanted something done, she got her people in line. And as we head into this new chapter in Washington with new leadership emerging, Republicans would do well to remember that the American people are tired of the bickering, tired of the showmanship. They want results, and they want leaders who put country before politics. Pelosi's career is a reminder of what happens when ideology becomes more important than unity of the country. She'll be remembered as a trailblazer, the first female Speaker of the House, yes, but also as one of the most polarizing figures in modern political history. So, today, as we reflect on her retirement, I'll say this. Nancy Pelosi, she fought hard. She fought for her vision of America. I just happen to believe her vision was the wrong vision. Her vision was a vision that put government over people, politics over principle, and party over progress. But in America, even your political opponents deserve a fair send-off. She made history. She changed Washington, not for the better in my view, but she changed it. And as she steps off the stage, it's up to us, conservatives, to make sure we change it back. So thank you, Nancy Pelosi, for reminding us what happens when leadership loses its moral compass, and for reminding conservatives what it means to fight for the soul of our nation. I have a quick update for you from yesterday. I told you about the transportation secretary saying that there would be some reductions in capacity from the FAA, which would mean reduced number of flights. Well, we have more details on that now because the growing mess at America's airports is going to get worse, a lot worse, before it gets better. Starting today, the feds are ordering steep flight cuts at 40 of the busiest airports in the country, all thanks to this ongoing government shutdown caused by the Democrats. We're talking about a 10% reduction that was announced yesterday by the Secretary of Transportation. He did not give details as far as what airports would be affected. Well, we have some of those airports now. The FAA hasn't officially released a full list, but yesterday, late afternoon, they let us know some of the heavy hitters like JFK, LaGuardia, New York, the hub in that northeast area, Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson, Chicago's O'Hare, LAX in Los Angeles, Boston Logan, Denver, and the list goes on. Pretty much every major hub that you can think of are going to get some limitations, which means the airlines are scrambling. Now, Delta says it'll start reducing flights today, though they're promising to keep most of the schedule intact, especially international routes. United CEO Scott Kirby says that they're trimming regional and non-hub routes, and they're offering refunds even if your flight isn't technically canceled. You got to say that's rare and probably a good move with tensions that are high right now. American Airlines is saying the impact should be minimal Frontier, on the other hand, is telling folks to have a backup plan, literally suggesting you book a second ticket on a different airline just in case. Now, that's not reassuring, is it? Who is going to book a flight on Frontier, but yet book one on Delta just in case? Wow. Southwest, they're still assessing how bad it's going to be, they say. Now, here's where it gets a little messy. These cuts aren't hitting all at once. They start with about 4% today. They ramp up to 5% tomorrow, 6% on Sunday, and then the full 10% probably sometimes next week if the shutdown drags on, if Congress doesn't get something worked out over the weekend. And, yeah, Thanksgiving travel right around the corner. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy even said it bluntly. He said if this shutdown is still going on when the holiday rush hits, it's going to be rough out there, really rough. So the bottom line is expect delays, expect cancellations if you're traveling, have a plan B, and if you're flying soon, maybe check that itinerary now because this shutdown isn't just a D.C. problem anymore. It's about to hit the runways from coast to coast. So just kind of, again, like I told you yesterday, if you're planning any travel soon, make plans and have a plan B. The Supreme Court yesterday ruled that President Trump's State Department can prohibit transgender Americans from listing their gender identity on their passports. This is a big win for the Trump administration. It hands another legal victory to the president in his efforts to eviscerate what his administration calls gender ideology, what we all know as gender ideology. The Justice Department brought the emergency appeal after lower courts blocked the passport policy for being rooted in irrational prejudice. The majority on the Supreme Court wrote in an unsigned ruling, quote, displaying passport holder sex at birth no more offends equal protection principles than displaying their country of birth. In both cases, the government is merely attesting to a historical fact without subjecting anyone to differential treatment. Basically, what the justices say here, and it was a 6-3 vote along ideological lines, though the justices do not have to publicly disclose their votes. We know who they are. But what they're saying here is, folks, use your common sense. If you're going to have to put your country of birth, USA, then what is it going to hurt saying, well, I was born a little boy. God made me a little boy. This whole transgender thing has just gone nuts, as you and I have talked about many times in the past. Now, the Ketanji Brown Jackson, joined by Justices Alana Kagan and Sonia Sotomayor, said such senseless sidestepping of the obvious equitable outcome has become an unfortunate pattern. So, too, has my own refusal to look the other way when basic principles are selectively discarded. I don't know why anybody would argue that nobody is being hurt by putting your biological sex on your passport. Solicitor General John Sawyer called lower rulings blocking the administration's policy untenable, casting them as infringing on Trump's constitutional authority over foreign affairs. The State Department policy requires passport holders to use their sex assigned at birth as their sex designation, prohibiting transgender people from matching it with their gender identity, the one that they pretend to be. The policy also removed the option for people to select X, leaving male and female as the only two options. I can't believe that we continue to even have this discussion. Of course, the American Civil Liberties Union, their attorney, Chase Strangio, warned in court filings, this new policy puts transgender, non-binary, and intersex people in potential danger whenever they use a passport. Now, what danger would it conceivably put someone in? Somebody help me. What danger if a young man was born a male, he now thinks he's a female, he's confused, and he gets a passport because he wants to travel, and he doesn't want to put down that he's a male, how could that put him in danger? I mean, really, I'm trying to think about this. I'm trying to be somewhat neutral to try to understand their thinking here. The ACLU, who represents transgender, non-binary Americans, are, of course, continuing to sue the State Department because of the changes. But I really want to know what kind of danger they could potentially be in. I mean, the only reason that the U.S. Supreme Court was even considering this was because of this crazy lawsuit that the ACLU brought, and of course they judge shop, so they took it to a Joe Biden U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals judge. They argued that it violates federal law and constitutional equal protection acts, and they convinced this federal district judge, again appointed by Joe Biden, to block this, to give him a temporary stay on this. It marked the latest case implicating President Trump's day one executive order that cracks down on his gender ideology fight to reach the Supreme Court. Previously, the justices issued emergency orders allowing the administration to enforce its transgender troops ban and cancel diversity-linked health grants. Again, I can make no sense out of this, so I'd love for you to help me here. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. Joining me on the guest line, Lieutenant Governor Pamella Evette. Welcome. There's so many issues that we can discuss. The federal government shut down in, week 5. This week we saw elections around the country, and they didn't go so well for some people. I'm just thankful that I live in the Palmetto State and not in New York City. So there's a lot of important things we need to discuss, but before we get to that, we got to start with the big story out of Charleston. What's your reaction to the incident revolving Nancy Mace at the Charleston International Airport, and do you believe her actions reflect the kind of leadership that South Carolinians deserve in a governor?
Well, Joey, let me start out by saying I flew to D.C. through the Charleston airport less than a month ago. My weeks get all jumbled together, but in the last month. And I showed up where I was supposed to be. They were there. We walked through TSA. It was flawless. Everybody was cordial. I wished them a great day, and I was off on my way. So first off, that was not my experience there. Secondly, we are adults, and you could be having a bad morning. Obviously, from the report, she was late. From the reports I've seen and heard, you may be having a bad morning, but you never react like that. You should never act like that as just being a normal adult in a public environment. But you should hold yourself to a higher standard when you are a known elected official. And this isn't the first time. I mean, the video came out with her at an Ulta store cursing and yelling. Now, I always look at it from the lens of a mom, Joey. If I was there with my child and my children when they were young, I would have said something. I would have been one of those moms that would be like, can you please clean up your language? Because I have a child standing here. And I mean, I don't know where that would have gotten me with the congresswoman, but No, it is. It is appalling. She, in my opinion, should have done nothing but apologize for her actions and moved on. But I think I read yesterday somewhere that she has done more than 100 tweets on this since last week.
Yep. It's almost like she's just obsessed with the whole incident. And you know, she claims that she's the victim of falsified incident reports and says that she's going to take legal action against the airport and against American Airlines. Evidently, the American Airlines gate agent had something to say to her as well. I mean, don't you just think that makes the situation worse? I mean, just say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have acted like that, and move on.
Absolutely. And, you know, let's break this down for a second. If any other citizen walked in an airport through that kind of scene, you would be on a no-fly list today.
Oh yeah, they would have arrested
you out of the airport.
They would have arrested me on the spot. Yes, I would not have gotten on the airplane.
Exactly. So why she thinks she was treated unfairly, I would say just the opposite. Because of who she was, which she announced to everybody apparently, she was given a pass that, you know, we've seen many times. People get taken off of planes, get escorted out of an airport. You know, we've seen it come up on the news time and time again since 9/11, right? Nobody puts up with bad behavior in an airport.
Yep.
And she, you know, they did with her. So, you know, we could all sit here and debate the fact that she got preferential treatment.
Yeah, exactly. And she did. Again, anybody else would have been arrested, and they would not have been allowed on that flight. Hey, and look, American Airlines, they have banned people from future flights. So, well, I guess the whole episode raises the question about your temperament and accountability in public office. And as a candidate for governor, I'd like to get your final response before we move on to something else about how you handle situations like this when tensions run high and mistakes are made, and maybe they made a mistake. I don't know, but you know, does this kind of reflect on the job that she would potentially do as governor?
Well, that's exactly right. You know, somebody asked me the other day about the same topic, and I said, when you think about who you want to elect to represent your state, I mean, they're representing you. And on a national stage, on a world stage, any given day of the week, something can go wrong. Somebody can mess up. Is that what you want representing you? Is that what you want the people of this country or the world to say, oh, that's what South Carolina is like? This must be what South Carolinians are like, because this is who they chose to represent their values and their, you know, and the way they treat each other. And there is no way that those actions represent the people of South Carolina.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Wow, the elections on Tuesday didn't turn out so well in some areas. We thought we might have a chance at the governor office in New Jersey, in maybe Virginia. That didn't happen. But I guess the biggest shock is what is going on with New Yorkers electing this young man to be their next mayor.
Well, you know, I think that was the least, the fact that he won was the least shocking to me, because it had been trending that way forever. There were 3 candidates in the race. And you look in the city, I guess Brooklyn came out for him. It is shocking to me that anybody thinks socialism is better than capitalism, right? That socialism is the experiment that's never worked. We can argue that this needs to be more put in children's curriculum so they have a better idea of what we're talking about when we talk about socialism and communism, for sure. Now, I think the most shocking to me, well, in New Jersey governor's race, I really thought Jack was going to pull it out. But how the people of Virginia elected an attorney general who literally thought it was okay to text a friend that he would like to see a Republican murdered and their children murdered in the arms of his wife. I mean, this is your top prosecutor in your state, and you're saying that the fact that he could actually put that in writing and send it to somebody is okay. It's just, it's kind of like we talked about. Now, that's what I look at is the Democrats and the people of Virginia think that kind of rhetoric is okay in their elected officials, and that is really disturbing.
Yeah, that was surprising for sure. Do you think, though, the fact that the Democrats were able to maintain or to win these elections, maintain some of the seats that the Republicans thought they had a shot at it? And you're right. I mean, we shouldn't have been surprised about the results of the New York race. I guess I just never really wanted to convince myself that it was possible that could happen. But do you think this was sort of a message, a wake-up call for Republicans going into the midterms, that maybe we need to adjust messaging? Is there anything that this tells us that maybe will prepare us better for next year?
I don't think it's a referendum. I was listening to the president. I was listening to Speaker Johnson yesterday, and Steve Scalise were talking. And New Jersey, we were hoping to win. That has been notoriously blue. Virginia, been notoriously blue. We had a gift from God with Glenn Youngkin. Yeah. He was well funded. He had a terrible opponent who talked about taking away parents' rights. I mean, the stars lined up for Governor Youngkin, and he's done an amazing job. When we're looking at actually New York City, that is really, really heavily blue. But what I think we do have to do as Republicans is what you and I have been saying for 7 years since we've been doing your show, Joey, is that Republicans better start messaging the positive things that have happened over the last 10 months under a Republican-controlled Senate, House, and White House. And the fact that we have illegal border crossings are non-existent anymore. We have stopped the flow of fentanyl. We have made a more level playing field for American businesses and American workers. We should talk about gas prices going down and the focus on energy and stop beating each other up because we're wearing people out on the fighting. Yeah. And I feel it. I know, hear it. We're beating each other up to the point where people don't even want to listen anymore. And I think that brings on people's apathy to not want to go out and vote because they kind of are throwing everybody together. And so listen to the president. He is always kind of opened everybody's eyes. And I, for one, am going to start trying to do a better, job focusing like one, maybe tweet a day on something that this administration and this Republican-held Congress has done for the American people and for the people of South Carolina, so that we start feeling more emboldened about the ideas of the Republican Party and what we're trying to accomplish to, keep our nation moving forward.
I think we just heard the Evette challenge. We're going to be a little more positive. We're going to talk about some of the good things we've done. So if you're listening, let's all participate in the Evette challenge. Lieutenant Governor Evette, always a pleasure. We'll catch up again soon.
Thanks so much, Joey. Everybody have a great weekend. God bless.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com. And I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code JOEY. Order online at MyPillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.